Hello guys, this is Doran's Movies and welcome to the second part of the Aqir series. In the previous video I covered the history of the Aqir and how they split into 3 different groups, and now going from that point I will be giving you the lore of the Nerubians. So, without further ado, let's get into the video. After the Aqir lost the war against the trolls, their empire was shattered and they split off. As the other Aqir stayed in the south region, one group went north, later known as the Nerubians. Much like the Kiraji, the Nerubians fought, defeated and enslaved a Titan-created race known as the Tol'vir. However, instead of just using them as weapons, they adapted their architecture and much of their current knowledge and implemented it in a way into their own society. At some unknown point in time, with unknown means, they managed to enslave the enormous worms known as the Jormungandr. They forced them to carve out massive tunnels all throughout Northrend subterranean ice, which would eventually lead into the creation of their very own first kingdom known as Azjol-Nerub. In World of Warcraft, due to the lack of time, Azjol-Nerub was never really shown in the true light, but in reality it is a massive kingdom. Some even speculate that it spans across almost the entirety of Northrend, and what we have seen so far was only a small part of it. Unlike the other Aqir kingdoms, Azjol-Nerub was filled with advanced architecture and libraries of literature, philosophy, and arcane lore. The Nerubians themselves are also quite a bit different from the Aqir races. They are xenophobic and cruel, but destruction isn't the only thing on their minds. So far we learned that their society was quite advanced and that they had a class system in which they had different roles depending on their talents and interests. Another big thing which also sets them apart from the other Aqir is that they don't really worship the old gods or serve them in any way. This is a bit confusing at the moment, as a lot of their lore is from the non-canon RPG books, and we have seen some examples of Nerubians worshipping Yogg-Saron, but as a whole, their society isn't religious and isn't strictly connected to the old gods. For thousands of years, their empire, society, and knowledge expanded, but it all came to a sudden stop recently. About 15 years back, shortly before the beginning of Warcraft 3, a major event happened known as the War of the Spider. When Kil'jaeden captured ner'zhul and created the Lich King shortly after the Second War, he had a task to weaken the world of Azeroth. Northrend was the center of the scourge, and obviously for it to expand to other continents, rule over the main continent Northrend had to be established. Lich King did fight and enslave many of the other native races and defeated them with ease, but the Nerubians in particular were a big threat. Most of them stayed underground and didn't pose an immediate danger, but he knew that he had to conquer them, as out of all of the races on Northrend at the time, their society was the biggest, the most advanced, and the most organized, and thus the War of the Spider began. At the start, the Nerubians were very successful as they launched constant hit-and-run guerrilla tactics, which the Lich King at the time could hardly battle against. On top of that, they were immune to the Plague of Undeath and the powers of mental domination, so that knocked 2 of the Lich King's biggest weapons out of the game. However, unfortunately for them, their corpses weren't immune to resurrection, and all of the fallen Nerubians joined the Lich King. Most notably, their king anub'arak died at some point in the war, and he became one of the best agents of ner'zhul. Eventually, as the war progressed, the Scourge, aided by the Nerubians, launched an assault on Azjol-Nerub with an enormous amount of undead. The Nerubians at the time were overwhelmed and much of their spider kingdom was completely destroyed. As they kept losing ground, they had to dig deeper and deeper into the ground to retreat, and this is what led to their demise. As they dug in, they eventually encountered the Faceless Ones, minions of the old gods. This could have possibly been a prison they broke through that the Titans have created ages ago when they defeated the Black Empire, but nevertheless this was fatal for them, as now they had a war on two fronts against very powerful enemies. Azjol-Nerub fell, most of the Nerubians died and were resurrected and added to the ranks of the Scourge. Their architectural style was adopted by the Lich King, such as the Ziggurat and the Necropolis. Also, some of the enslaved Tol'vir were captured as well and turned into the Obsidian Destroyers, but apart from that, much of their knowledge and wealth was left untouched inside the Fallen Kingdom, as ner'zhul cared very little for it. After the war, some of the living Nerubians survived and held their ground, as we have seen in Warcraft 3, but most of them were soon enough overwhelmed by their fallen brethren and the Scourge. However, to this day, some of the Nerubians survived and have battled the Scourge and even allied with us. It was also revealed that they have a giant secret stash of hidden eggs that they plan to use to repopulate their society after they take full control of Azjol-Nerub. Since the Lich King was defeated quite some years ago, it is very possible that at this point the Nerubians have already started rebuilding their civilization. To add to this, Blizzard said that they want to present Azjol-Nerub properly if we ever revisit Northrend. So if there is ever a new Northrend expansion, they could possibly have a spotlight. We could maybe learn more about them, ally with them, or maybe even fight the old god forces. Alright, that is all I have for this video. Now the last part covering the Mantids should be out pretty soon, and do leave your thoughts on this series and these lore videos, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you're not subscribed to the channel already, as it really helps out and keeps all the videos going. And thanks a lot for taking the time out of your day to watch this video, and see you next time.